"Damn it, man." Point to 7-year-old Brian puts his hand to his head, as his cousin Johnny laughs almost hysterically, and exclaims to his lawyer, "We're appealing this." Meanwhile, his 45-year-old father, Kim, sits frozen, staring into space. He's struggling to understand what just happened. Nivaagaard Art Collection is a local gem. The collection includes, among other things, the only artwork by Rembrandt whose authenticity has never been doubted. However, Nivaagaard is also known for being the setting of a dramatic story, the Rembrandt robbery in 1999. What made the robbery spectacular was that it took place in broad daylight, as well as the value of the two paintings that were stolen. The stolen works were Rembrandt's portrait of a 39-year-old woman from 1632 and Giovanni Bellini's portrait of a young man from 1490. The exact auction value is unknown as they are priceless, but they were estimated at 14 to 20 million United States dollars. In January 29, 1999, it was a quiet day at the museum, with only 6 visitors aside from 2 staff members. When 4 of the guests left, only to remain, and that's when 2 men made their move. One cut down the Rembrandt painting, while the other took the Bellini painting. The curator tried to stop them but was taken out of the game by the robbers, though not before he saw the large dark getaway car and noted part of the Swedish license plate. The curator was punched, turning the theft into a robbery. The police launched an intense investigation, but finding the robbers and the stolen paintings was complicated. The police received many tips and leads, but none led anywhere. It only took 10 minutes for 2 completely silent and cold-blooded art thieves to execute Denmark's biggest heist without using any weapons. However, 6 months after the theft, a breakthrough in the case occurred. The dramatic resolution involved an English lawyer, Denmark's Special Crime Unit, 2 civilian agents, and an agent who played the role of a Russian mafioso. On August 24, 1999, 2 people were arrested for attempting to sell the paintings. The thieves turned out to be cousins Brian and Johnny, Johnny's father Kim, and his friend Christian. Johnny had allegedly received an offer of $35,000 USD for 2 paintings from Nivaagaard Art Collection from a friend. The paintings were simply hanging on the wall without any security, and there was only an old curator managing the museum. The 2 cousins went up to the collection north of Copenhagen to check the security situation and found that there was none. Already in the previous Christmas month, Brian, a tall muscular man with big eyes, and Johnny, a heavily built bodybuilder with tattoos up his arm, had tried to pull off the Rembrandt heist, but it had failed. Twice, the cousins tried to steal the paintings, but neither time did the theft succeed. The 2 simply didn't have the nerves for it. After these 2 failed attempts, they decided to bring others into the project. They offered bodybuilder's 45-year-old father Kim to carry out the task with a partner for $11,000 USD. On January 29th, Kim and Christian drove to Zealand and met Brian at his apartment in Krebro, Copenhagen. The 2 men were handed the getaway Volvo, which, that morning, wouldn't start, allegedly because Brian and Johnny had forgotten to turn off the stereo in it. Using jumper cables and power from the car they had driven to Copenhagen in, they got the car running and drove both cars to Nivaagaard Art Collection. There, they parked one car nearby and continued to the museum in the stolen Volvo. When they arrived at the museum, there were some workers in the parking lot, and the 2 Rembrandt robbers decided to take a little drive. They came back later when it was less populated. One cut down the Rembrandt painting, while the other took the Bellini painting. The curator tried to stop them but was pushed away by the robbers. The thieves had no idea how much the paintings were worth. They had just gotten to clippings from a brochure where the names of the artists had been cut out. In the criminal world, as they lived in it back then, people usually knew the value of things in both the real world and the criminal world. But this time, they didn't, Christian said. After we delivered the 2 paintings, we drove around in a car. Somewhere on a highway, we hear the radio and realize how much they were worth. That's when I completely flipped out. Christian remembers the moments when, in the afternoon of January 29, 1999, it dawned on him that the robbery he had just carried out was far more serious than he had realized. Christian immediately regretted the robbery, and there were 2 reasons for this. The Rembrandt painting is a treasure, a one-of-a-kind painting, so I thought it was wrong. I would have preferred to steal a Mercedes or a BMW and sold it, but this wasn't right. When Christian and Kim were in the car and heard the news of the robbery on the radio, panic set in. It has to be returned. You can't do this. And we won't get away with it, even if it takes 100 years, Christian said to Kim in the car, then suggested they steal a car, retrieve the paintings they had just handed over in an unknown Ford Scorpio, and drive to a small police station to park it there with the paintings inside. Kim actually agreed to this and called a third party to tell them about our plan. But they were told that the paintings were already out of the country. The paintings, however, were never out of the country but were hidden in a basement in Valby. Kim is very well known to the police and is known in the criminal world as Scrap Kim. He has a long career as a scrap thief, stealing scrap metal from one place and selling it elsewhere. He has several convictions and a long record in the police's criminal database. Christian realized they would eventually be caught. He decided to enjoy his last days of freedom and invited his then-girlfriend and her child to go on a holiday to Tunisia. 12 days after the robbery, the police received a tip-off from a friend of Kim's stepfather. He said that the stepfather and his sons were likely involved in the robbery. 2 days later, a former girlfriend of a fifth man, who was believed to have stored the paintings, contacted the police. She said he had something to do with the case. On February 17th, the police received permission to tap the man's phone. After he spoke about Johnny and Brian, the police also started listening in on the cousins' mobile phones. On March 13th, the two cousins were arrested after Brian received a mysterious call saying the fifth man had been tapped by the police. Brian immediately called Johnny and told him something was wrong. 19 days later, Kim himself appeared at the police station. But before this, he had arranged an alibi with Christian. Jens, a criminal investigator who was the first officer at the crime scene, still wonders to this day why Christian chose to contact the police to tell them he was Kim's alibi. It was a bit unclear why Christian contacted the police that way. Because by doing so, he was actually responsible for us getting onto his trail, Jens says. In fact, Christian chose to personally show up at the police station in Heist because Kim had asked him to be his alibi. Christian was arrested shortly after Kim. The hammer fell hard in the Eastern High Court when 12 unanimous jurors and 3 judges sentenced Johnny, Kim, and Brian to 5, 4 and 3 years in prison respectively, totaling 12 years for Denmark's biggest art heist on January 29, 1999, from Nivaagaard art collection north of Copenhagen. And the sentences were more than tough enough for the 3 convicted. It was clear from their reactions when the judge read from his paper. While the defense lawyers for Kim and nephew Brian both requested time to consider appealing, Johnny's lawyer immediately appealed the 5-year sentence. It's a very long prison sentence, and my client is very surprised by the judgment, said Mikhail, Johnny's lawyer. Mikhail himself was surprised that the sentence was so harsh, but not directly disappointed. He justified the appeal by saying the sentence was too long. Additionally, confidential information from Johnny had been used in the case, information that the police had promised would not be used against him. The prosecutor, Morton, did not wish to appeal the High Court's decision. He had requested the maximum penalty for robbery, which is 6 years. When you steal a Rembrandt worth 250 million kroner, you have to expect a penalty up to the maximum, Morton said. As for the paintings, despite the drama, they were returned to the Nivaagaard art collection, with only minor damage to the Rembrandt. Today, they're back on display, free from the grasp of the criminals who thought they could get away with it. If you enjoyed this crazy story, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime tales.